My name is Dan Slepian, and I'm a producer with NBC News, where I've worked for 20 years. I've produced all kinds of stories, but for more than a decade, one issue has both haunted and consumed me: wrongful convictions. Justice denied. Over the years, I've investigated many claims of innocence.
How you doing, Dan?
And sometimes my reporting has actually helped free innocent people. The more of these stories I do, the more people I hear from who say they too are innocent. The mail comes in all of the time. In fact, here's an envelope that showed up a couple of hours ago. I haven't opened it yet. This box came in last week. My email is full of people claiming they're innocent. Many of these people are probably lying. But sometimes I'll hear about a case that sounds so outrageous it makes me wonder, what if it's true? Which is exactly why I looked into the story you're about to hear. We're on our way up to Sullivan County Correctional Facility in New York. It's about 2 hours north of Manhattan. We're on our way to see an inmate by the name of Richard Rosario. Richard Rosario is serving 25 years to life for the 1996 murder of a 17-year-old named George Colazzo in the South Bronx. I heard about Rosario from another inmate I'd done a story about. The headline of this case is that Richard says while this murder was happening in the Bronx, he was in Florida. The first thing I do in an investigation like this is visit the inmate. We're going to look him in the eye, as will you, and we'll see what he has to say. No matter how many times I do this, every time I pull up to a prison, I feel a little tense. Big prison. Sullivan Correctional Facility is home to nearly 500 maximum security inmates, including serial killer David Berkowitz, the son of Sam, and Richard Rosario, who seems a bit edgy when we meet.
Don't be nervous. I'm saying that too, not to be nervous.
Yeah.
And then, just as we're about to start talking, he asks if the correction officer can leave the room.
And the officer has to be in here for the interview when we're speaking about my case, because,
I tell the officers I don't mind being alone with him.
I just want whoever's deciding to know I'm totally fine.
Rosario explains to me, in prison, you keep to yourself, and he doesn't want anyone, including the officers, knowing his business.
These guys just listening to our conversation.
I start by giving him my ground rules. Don't bother lying, because I check everything out.
All I care about is the facts. So if you're actually innocent, the facts can't hurt you. The facts can only help you.
Absolutely.
Rosario tells me he didn't know George Colazzo, and he certainly didn't kill him. He says the first time he even heard about the murder was 2 weeks after the crime. He says he was in Florida, called home, and heard police were looking for him.
As soon as my mother told me, and I spoke to my sister, I spoke to my wife, and I found this out, I just came back.
And when he came back, he says, he voluntarily called the NYPD, telling them they'd made a mistake.
15 minutes later, they arrived at my mother's house.
And what'd you say?
I said I was in Florida.
And what'd they say?
They said, we still got to take you down to the precinct and question you down there. And I left with them.
Detectives took Rosario to the 43rd Precinct in the Bronx, where he says he gave them a list of witnesses who could confirm he was in Florida.
And you gave them their phone numbers?
Their phone numbers, their addresses.
And you gave them all of this that first day?
Everything.
The first day?
The first day.
He tells me he thought that would be it. Cops call the witnesses confirm his story, and he goes right home to his family.
This is the way it's supposed to work. You didn't commit a crime. You're in another state when this happens. How does it supposed to work?
But here's the thing. Detectives had 2 eyewitnesses who said they were certain Rosario was the killer.
They look at these photographs.
Yes.
And somebody picks you out.
Yes.
He said you were the guy.
Well, he got to that point. I really can't say.
Prosecutors say because they picked the right guy.
Well, they're going to always say they got the right guy.
Well, it was enough for the detectives and the Bronx District Attorney. 2 years later, a jury convicted Rosario of murder and sentenced him to 25 years to life. So far, he served 20 of those years.
I still don't understand what I'm doing in prison. I'm innocent.
If he's telling the truth, think about all that's been lost. Rosario was 20 when he was arrested. Today, he's 40. He shared this picture with his wife and kids taken in the months before his arrest. Today, Amanda and Richard Jr. are adults. They visit their dad in prison a couple of times a year. This is what they look like today.
To go see our dad. We're excited. I haven't seen him in 6 months since his birthday.
You know, my family, my children, my life, right in front of me, just taken away.
After our interview, I'm not quite sure what to believe. Maybe he's guilty, maybe he's not. But as I leave the prison, I know I want to keep going. I want to find out if those alibi witnesses really exist. But first, I need to learn about the crime and how it all went down.
He turns and shoots the kid point blank.
Because what's up, man?
And it's bang.
That's next on Conviction.